So hi everybody, this is Hustle Hub. I'm Giacomo, and today we are covering AMD. This is one of the stocks that you asked me for. So AMD is in a difficult moment. A lot of people are talking about semiconductor companies because they're right in the middle of the storm. Why? Because as many other businesses, it was hit by the geopolitical turmoil that which has uh, characterized this year thus far. So it looks like AMD is going to be hit with a export ban from the U.S. government uh, for some of the exports that AMD does going into China. That's because the geopolitical tension is rising, and the U.S. government wants to make sure that the Chinese military doesn't get access to critical technology. So semiconductors are a very big issue because, as you may remember, one of the first sanctions that the US and the European Union, along with the UK, put on Russia back in February was the ban of exports, was a ban on exports of semiconductors. And now, from the battlefield, we hear reports that inside drones, inside Russian drones, they they took semiconductors, chips, everyday products like washing machines and other electronics. So semiconductors are a very critical resource. So a ban from the US government probably will be necessary if things go gradually worse, but it will certainly hit AMD. So first of all, let's see what Wall Street how Wall Street sees the AMD in this particular moment. So we can see that um, out of all the Wall Street analysts that have published their recommendations, we can see that still 68% of the analysts recommend a buy, 27, 28-ish percent recommends a hold, and 3.7% a sell. So we can see that the latest recommendations came out just a few days ago, and we see that all across the board they have reviewed their price target. So here from Citibank, they have reviewed their price target from 96 to $65 a stock, from 96 to $65 a share. Mizuho from 140 to 102, Morgan Stanley from 102 to 86, and so on and so forth. So we can see how the recommendations have changed in the last year. We can see from July of the last year they have gone up, and since the start of this year they have been trending downwards. So um, let's see based on the performance score. So okay, um, the the best performing have been published. So out of the best performing, we can see the one from Barclays that is very recent. Let's see how they have performed over the long term. We can see how the expectations changed completely from a very optimistic call uh, and relatively optimistic price targets. Not too optimistic, but we can see that this guy, for example, his price targets are met on average after 187 days after they are reported. So it's pretty okay. but we can see how the trend has been going downwards and downwards. So let's see. Let's get back to the ones that have reported their recommendations lately. We can see Deutsche. Let's see if we can find Deutsche. Here it is. We can see that the trend is pretty much similar. Okay, he has been more bearish, but now the trend is more or less the same. Okay, let's see Morgan Stanley, how they have been doing. So here it is, Morgan Stanley. Very different, but now we can see that lately they all have changed their view. Okay, let's see the last one from Mizuho. Okay, here it is. So this is the last one. Still optimistic during all this year, but now you can see that the price targets have gone lower and lower, and he still holds a buy recommendation, but the price target is lowered. Okay, so let's see AMD basic financial data. We can see that compared to Nvidia, which I did yesterday, it has a more conservative price earning ratio. So possibly we'll still have to see, could be a more conservative investment, but we'll see. We'll get in more in the detail of the financials. So forward PE more conservative, debt to equity pretty low. Okay, earnings per share, insider owned. The insider transactions are lower compared to Nvidia's, but they still have sold a little bit. Okay, so we can see the recommendations, and yeah, we can see that there's a lot of people are getting very nervous on the markets, especially over semiconductor businesses. So okay, let's see what we have left out. Okay, so I have summed up what AMD has done in the last 10 years. So here's some data, so you can get a blueprint of how the company has behaved thus far and what makes it different from Nvidia. So the revenue has gone up, has multiplied many times, so that's good. And the EBITDA as well. AMD had a few years negative, with negative earnings. We can see that the debt has gone up, but it's manageable. And as I always say, debt is not always bad. As long as it's under management, it's pretty good, because it's a lot cheaper to finance yourself with debt rather than equity a lot of times. So we can see the enterprise value EBITDA ratio that has gone up, and now it has gone a bit downwards. But we can see compared to Nvidia, AMD has diluted more its equity base. So yes, maybe it has a more conservative price earning ratio, more conservative forward PE ratio, but you also have to take a look at the shares outstanding. And compared to Nvidia, it hasn't done such a great thing for the shareholders. Compared to Nvidia, it hasn't done such a great thing for the shareholders. And then we can see the earnings per share that have gone up and up. So hopefully they will be able to keep growing. But the issue here is, given the fact that China is a very important market, it will be hard to maintain the expectations that analysts have for semiconductor stocks. Therefore, it will be harder to justify high price earning ratios compared to other sectors. So we can also see that AMD doesn't distribute dividends. So if you're a dividend investor, AMD is probably not for you, but Nvidia distributes dividends. They have a low dividend yield, but it has grown over time. Make sure to check out the Nvidia video that I published yesterday. So more in detail, we can see why the analysts are worried, because for the last year, for example, the revenue that came out of China was second only to the revenue that AMD generated in the United States. And it was one of the fastest growing markets. So the ban on some of the Chinese exports will take a toll on the stock. We still have to figure out to what extent the ban will be imposed by the US government. Even though China as a market will weigh a bit lower in the overall revenue report for AMD, we'll still have to take a look whether tensions rise between Taiwan and China and the United States, of course. So I hope that this overlook of AMD was useful for you. Make sure to let me know, and let me know which stocks you want me to cover next. The links to the databases that I've used for this video will be in the description, so make sure to check them out. This is it for today. I'm Giacomo. This is Hustle Hub. See you next time.